A big truth. Your hardest chapter can become the engine of your business. Today, how Katie took 33 years of narcissistic abuse and turned that into a book, a platform, and a ton of speaking invites. Subscribe and let's build your origin into an asset. Thank you for watching today's episode of Entrepreneurial Truth. I'm your host, Kesi Case. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on another episode of Entrepreneurial Truth. On today's episode, we have Katie with us, and she's going to share her life story, her journey, everything in between. I'm so happy to have you on today. Can you share a little bit about who you are and what you're doing?
I am a farmer, retired farmer. I have just journeyed through a narcissistic marriage and the court system. 33 years I was married, and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just about over.
Awesome. And for our listeners here, can you tell us a little bit of your story, like what led you into writing your book? And yeah, just tell us a little bit about that.
I started writing the book more as a therapy, trying to figure out the pieces on how I ended up with the man that I married and how I allowed what I did in our marriage. And as a result, I joined a writing group, and I had sent it off to one of the members in the group, and the response I got was, I could feel your pain. So the girls kept telling me, there's other people in the same boat you are. You know, I was 55 when I left and totally scared about starting over. Totally. But yet I knew that I was merely surviving. I wasn't living. And I had to make the move to get out and to get a better mental health and to live a life.
So was it hard reliving everything when you were writing that book?
Oh, it was extremely difficult. As I started writing it, I realized I kept coming back to the same question. Why did I allow this? So I actually had to go right back into my childhood memories. And I started writing from what I could remember in my childhood memories. And it was then that I started to connect the dots on how my boundaries went down and how I was always trying to please everybody to survive in that environment. And I carried that through onto my married life. And that's what I did in my married life. And it just seemed like my boundaries were getting knocked down, and I was allowing more and more. And 33 years of marriage and a built up farm business, and each year was worse than the one previous. And I had to get out.
Yeah. And I know we spoke previously about what, that entailed. And I would love our listeners to grab a copy of your book to be able to kind of dig into it, because it's so deep, it's so complex, and it has so many layers. But what I like about your story is that you are able to start over, right? You're able to shine because now you have this book that's helping so many people. How does that feel coming out of being in such a toxic relationship, having this new start?
Actually, it almost feels liberating, because in this marriage, everything that happened at home stayed at home. So one way was at home, and we portrayed another out in the public. And so now that I'm on my own, when I first left, I was just blah, 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 blah. I felt so good and so free. And then some people I noticed would look at me like I was kind of crazy, and you could tell that they were thinking, why did you stay there? Why were you in that marriage for as long as you were? And then that's when I started to pull back and say, unless you've been there, you don't totally understand. You don't understand the grip that they have on you and how you're surviving and how you got to get your thought process moved around into wanting to escape and live.
Wow. Wow. And was there any specific chapter in the book that was the hardest to write?
Probably the chapter that I wrote on my dad. That was a hard one, and that memory will always be with me. And I have to say it's been a process, but every time this book went into 4 rounds of editing plus formatting, and every time I went through it, when I got it back from the editor, it was emotional, but I find the more you talk about it, the more you process, the more you understand. So you've got to face it head on, and you've got to deal with it is what it is. And how do I fix it?
And I know that your body carries certain emotions, right? And I know because I've been through, toxic partnerships before, right? And not necessarily in a marriage, but and I know your body carries that kind of feeling. What tools do you have in place to deal with that?
Well, honestly, I learned how to gray rock pretty good. And that is not engaging in acting like a rock, not engaging into the drama, not feeding in, you just gray rock. You just stand there and you just listen and you don't say anything. You don't feed into it.
Right.
And then I was in at the counselor's early on when I left, and she kept asking me, do you have any stomach problems? No, I don't have any stomach problems. Why don't you have stomach problems with the amount of stress you're under? And I said, I don't know. And I said, my daughter got me on these electrolyte drinks. And then she said, that makes sense. Because when your body's under stress, it withholds the electrolytes. And she said, you just have acid flowing into your stomach. And that's what causes ulcers.
Oh.
So she said it's those electrolytes that are probably saving your stomach.
What? Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's little tidbits you learn along the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So for whoever needed to hear that, if you have been dealing with, a toxic relationship or something like that, here's a great tip that she just gave, that's awesome. That's awesome, because it does present itself in gut health, in loss of appetite, in so many different ways, between counseling and proper gut health. That is great to hear.
Yeah.
Awesome.
They also tell you to exercise every day. They said the amount of endorphins you release into your body is the same as being on medication. So they advise you to at least walk half an hour a day. So they said go and walk. And probably one of the big things that saved me is I brought my farm dog into town. And every day we went walking 3 kilometers, and she forced me out of the house to go and move. And that was a real benefit for me too.
Wow. That is awesome. And for our entrepreneurs out there, because we have a lot of young entrepreneurs that listen to our show, what are some of the things, now that you're starting over with this new business, you're now promoting your book, what are some tips or advice that you would give them starting out, for those starting over, or for those just starting?
Well, I don't be discouraged over negativity or not getting that interview you wanted. Everything is a process. If you don't get it, learn from it, change, move forward. Don't give up. Don't give up. Just if it's something you truly believe in, put your heart and soul in it. It'll work out.
Wow. Wow. And so what are some of the strategies that you're using right now in order to promote your new life, your new book?
I've joined a group and I've been involved in trying to get on podcasts to spread awareness, because that's what I want to do. I want to spread the awareness so that people understand the detrimental damage that it can do to you. And I'm on several platforms, and that's kind of where I'm starting. I'm just getting in. I'd like to eventually get into speaking, but this is a good first step for me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do you find that people are encouraging your second chapter?
Oh, yeah, I do. I was part of a compilation book, and I wrote a chapter on the aftermath of narcissistic abuse and some of the problems that you'll have to, like I have to work through, and successfully. I'm pretty happy with where I am. That book gets launched in October, and I'm part of one of the authors, 21 authors, and it's all on women's health, and it's called She Thrives. And it's October 17th and 18th at the Calgary Casino here in Alberta.
Nice.
So I live on the farm, and the farm is still busy. My son manages it, and I have grandchildren out here all the time. So we have chores, chickens and turkeys, and learning how to do canning, making jams and jellies and pickles. And honestly, that was what I wanted for a retirement, was to spend time with the grandchildren on the farm. But now I just feel my purpose is so much more than that.
Right. And I know we were talking about that too, right? That having gone through everything that you lived through, you now realize that you needed to go through that in order to be this person to show up for other people. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Well, I honestly believe that we all have a path, and the path can't be rosy all the time. And mine was a challenging one, along with a lot of other people, but you've got to be persistent, and you got to have a goal at the end, and you got to keep striving and working for that. And if that means hiring some professionals to help you, I went through 4 lawyers, if you can believe it. Some of them are sick, or some of them are leaving me and going to the firm that's representing my husband. Oh yeah. And so anyways, but I always kind of looked at it as everything happens for a reason. And honestly, who I have right now representing me, she is a diamond. Like, she is getting things done. I go to see a counselor when I'm under a lot of stress. They give you tools on how to deal with the stress, how to acknowledge it, put it up on the counter, deal with it later, because you've got no control over it. So there's no sense in worrying about that. Go on to the next thing. You're going into court or pre-trial, and I was so nervous, I didn't want to break down and cry. I wanted to be strong and in control. And they give you little tactics so that you can be that. Like, you have to draw from people that can help you get to where you want. And
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask. If they say no, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
They say no because there's a bigger picture waiting for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And how do you see some of the things and the tips that they've given you? If you were to apply it in a business situation, do you think that there's anything that they've given you that you think may be useful?
Oh, most definitely. I believe stress is probably one of them. Because with any business, there's a certain amount of stress. And with larger businesses, there's more stress. And I can remember saying to my counselor, how do people of large corporations manage? Like, how do they actually manage? And she said, they don't. They don't unless they're in my office.
Wow.
So, I guess you have to accept that, it's part of the job, and you've got to learn how to handle stress. Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of us don't really know how to handle it and don't know that therapy is a thing until you're put into the situation where you have to you have no choice but to get therapy.
Yeah.
And at that point you realize, hey, listen, it's really, really important to get it, especially when you're trying to run a business, when you're trying to grow, when you have all the demands, people counting on you, and I know we're speaking as if you don't already run a big business, we're talking about the farm as if it's small, but can you let our listeners know a little bit about that business too, so they get some context?
Oh, okay. So we run a grain farm. So we have seeding and we have harvest and we have spraying season. So you've got a certain amount of land. So you have to try and make sure that your equipment is up to date and can manage getting in there in the time crunch to seed everything. And I had my own combine to run and my tandem to dump, and my husband had his combine and the semi to dump. So the two of us were working in the fields when the kids had left. We did everything. And in the mornings, I would fuel up the combines, do the windows, pack the lunches, and he would do the maintenance and then would head to the field and come in at 11 o'clock at night. We spent a lot of hours out there. And honestly, it was a sense of relief when harvest is done, because you get this sense of accomplishment. Like you've just been on this marathon and it's done. Now you got to look at mixing up your grain samples and bagging them and starting to market them. Take them to all the elevators, letting them know how many bushels you have of what commodity, and they'll put a package together, and then you figure out where you're going to haul. So, and then in the wintertime is maintenance and all the equipment, hauling all your grain out, getting the chemicals and fertilizer in place for the following year. So sometimes on the fall in the combines, we're getting calls over booking our canola seed for next year, the fertilizer, how many tons we're going to need. So it's always rolling, and you have to manage.
Yeah, you sound like you're always busy. And how is okay being an author in like you have to compare the two, right? How is that job versus what you're doing now?
Honestly, it's like swimming in deep water. Like I'm learning so many computer skills the girls tease me about. It's adventurous, like it's exciting. I'm learning new skills and new traits and new ideas that I've never ever had any knowledge of. Like I've been on the combine, or I've been on the tractor or the truck. So this is a whole new venture, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm enjoying what I'm doing because my son is looking after what I did before. So now I've got this newfound freedom that I want to go for it.
Yeah, I love it because you're not only switching careers, right? Yeah. You're switching like from a physical, right, really physical, labor intensive job to now a more mental job, right? I think they're both they're so different, but there's so much work in different aspects.
Yes. Yeah, I find like I'm usually on the computer all mornings, if not more than that, just searching and applying and, you know, figuring out my next move or how should I write, you know, this next little article. Yeah, it's good. Writing is an excellent avenue
Mm-hmm.
because when you're going through a lot, grab your computer, grab your pen and paper, and just start writing. And it's amazing the amount of relief that you get once it's out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you blog? Do you go on any blog forums and write any articles for blogs?
Not yet. I will go in and leave my comments on certain Instagram accounts, you know, having to deal with narcissism. And, but I haven't got to that point yet. My book was just launched here in June. So the podcasts have started here in August. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm on my early stages.
I love it. I love it. I love having people on our beginning of their journey. Well, you're on the beginning of the second journey, right?
Yes.
So I'm excited for you. Is there anything that you'd love to share with our listeners that you feel would be super helpful for them if they happen to be listening to this and maybe going through anything that you may have?
Well, I would have to say, if you're in a relationship that's not working for you, like, you know, whether it's physical, mental, if it's not working for you, you got one life to live. And if you don't take that leap of faith, you close the doors for everything that could possibly happen. And if it's something you believe in, go for it and work for it, because that is what's going to truly bring you joy.
Awesome. And if you were giving your younger self advice, what would the advice be?
Well, I was thinking about this here the other day. I'm thinking, you know, I married the man of my dreams. I thought that would love and protect me and everything. And instead, I walked out of there with like a degree in narcissism. So I would have to say, trust your gut. You know, your gut is your intuition. And if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Do not force anything. Do not, you know, like, look after yourself, strive for yourself, be yourself, and the right person is going to walk into your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. I love it. I love it. Can you tell us where we can find the book? Tell our listeners how we can find you.
Well, I'm on I have a website, cultivatingfreedom.ca, and it's there. You can purchase my book and all my podcasts. Once you subscribe, you'll get notifications of all the podcasts, and the podcasts are updated daily on there. My book is on Amazon, and this is what it looks like. I'm so excited.
Love it.
And it's me. Like, bottom line, it's me. I love the farm. I love the simple life. I love everything about it. So I believe that this book is going to definitely help those that are wondering if you're in a narcissistic relationship or just in a bad relationship. The signs of abuse that you will start to show. Mm-hmm. The checklist leave, if you decide to leave, some of the things that you have to consider, and advice, questions on how to hire a lawyer and a therapist. Those two go hand in hand. They're going to be tied with you, and you have to be prepared. There's a lot of knowledge in this book. A lot of lessons that I learned that maybe somebody else can learn from it so that they don't do the same mistakes that I did.
Or, even leaving early, you could be in a narcissistic business relationship or partnership, this would be the guide. This would be the guide for you to identify the signs. Hey, listen, this is not a good situation,
Yes. And I honestly, I am a member of different narcissistic groups, and I listen to their reels and everything. It's nice to know that you're not the only one in this situation, and it's comforting, and there is a community, and you do draw a lot of support and knowledge from that community, and that is worth paying attention to, whether it be your boss or your family member or your husband or wife, or it helps you navigate those challenges coming forward. Because I was in my 28th year of marriage before I even actually had a name for what he had. Wow. And I got that name from the medical field as they were helping me out. So I can remember 28th year of marriage. I think, man, we're finally getting help. This is going to work. And then he was put on medication, and then we had to go back in 6 weeks for a reassessment. And the first thing the doctor said was, I couldn't let you leave without medicating you last time. Well, I just about broke down, started crying, because 28 years we're finally getting help. But then it didn't take long for him to get feeling better, because the depression part of this was getting treated. But you cannot treat the personality disorder unless they acknowledge there is a disorder, and that'll never happen.
Wow.
They can't. So, when I kind of think of everything that I went through, and honestly what my kids went through. And I said to the doctor, I said, did I do a disservice by staying in this marriage? And he said, don't go down that path.
Wow.
So, I often think he threatened to shoot our son and put him 10 feet under where he belonged, and that cut him. Those words are said. He said it. Once they're said, you can't take it back. And then he would laugh about it. Oh, Katie, you don't think that I would do that? And I said, the words came out of your mouth. I said, so what is going through your head? So he'll go from laughing to crying to needing help. So we're in at the marriage counselor. And then she asks him, am I right to assume you brought your wife in here to change and you don't have to? Yeah, I guess so.
Wow.
What do you do with that?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was, my son and his dad were really close at one time. And I had said to the counselor, I said, you might think I'm crazy, but I do believe that he's jealous, or he feels threatened from his son for how well his son is doing. And she said, no, that's perfectly normal. She said, because they cannot let anybody outshine them, and they will turn on their kids and alienate their kids. And that's exactly what's happened to our son.
Wow. Wow. I cannot wait. Everyone, you have to grab a copy of her book so that you can get into it. I mean, the conversation that we had before was so deep, was so impactful, but I think it would do it a disservice by having her spill everything about the book without you actually diving in and reading it. Thank you so much for being on our show today. I really appreciated every minute of it, and I look forward to your growth and your future success. Katie, thank you so much.
It was wonderful to be here. Like I said, my mission is to spread awareness so that others don't go through what I did 33 years. Yeah, it's important. Agreed.
Her mission is important, guys. listen, I will link I will link our website. I will link how you can find the book on the bottom of it. I appreciate it. Everyone, thank you again for joining us on another episode of Entrepreneurial Truth.